How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samachay, Daf 65 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, yo friends. Today we're talking about some stuff. We're gonna start on Daf Samachay Umar Aleph. Where are we? I think the fourth line of the page. Why not? Gufil Maruf says Rab, Karen ke'ein shegonav. Ooh wah. Tashlum keva v'tashlum abba v'achmisha ke'eshas hamoda badin. Ooh wah. Alright, you said it. It's the morning. I got a cup of coffee over here. It's very pleasant. The power washers, mama's just finished blowing everything away. Hopefully they're gone. And they won't bother us, and okay, Chaim. Okay, so Rab, this is gewaldige stuff. Let's read it again. Gufa Amar Rab, says Rab, Karen ke'in shegonav, v'tashlumei kefel, v'tashlumei abba v'achmisha k'shas amar badin. Ooh wah. Okay, so there's the time that the thing was stolen, and then there's also the time that you go to court and you get the first part. So if there's a change in the value, let's say, we're going to discuss exactly what the change in the value of the item over time. So is the pay is what you're required to pay going to be based on the value at the time of the theft or the value at the time of the court case? So says Rav, the principal amount, right? Because let's say you have to pay kefil, so you pay the principal amount plus double, right? Plus another time, right? Toveach u'mocher would be 4 times the amount, 5 times the amount. So for the principal amount, it's going to be based on the time that it was stolen, according to Rav. And for the sort of knasos, you could say, kind of these additional payments that are added on, those would be kshas hamara badin, like at the time of the court case. So let's read that again. Gufa, we said earlier, Amarav says Rav, Karen, the principal amount, kein shegonav, is evaluated based on the time of the theft. Tashlumei kevel, v'tashlumei abba v'achmisha, but these additional payments, whether it's twice the amount, 4 times the amount, 5 times the amount, kshas hamara badin, that will be based on the value at the time of the court case. My taima deruv. How come Rav says this? Mikro, because the pasuk says geneva v'chaim. We learned this yesterday. The pasuk mentions, right? What is it? So it says geneva and chaim. That the keren should be like at the time of the theft. Rav Sheshes says of Sheshes Amina that I allege Kinayim v'shachiv Rav Amr Lashmaita. It must have been that Rav was sleeping when he said this, because after all, the Tani we learn in the Brisa Chusha v'Shmina. If you have a let's say like an ox, and you stole an ox, and when you stole it, it was shvach. It was weak. It was all scrawny. V'Shmina, and it got plump. So meaning, right. So Shimon stole an ox from Reuven. When Shimon stole the ox, it was scrawny, and then by the time Shimon got busted, it was already nice and plump. So Mishalim Tashlumei Kefel v'Tashlumei Arba v'Achmisha ke'ein shegonav. So we say that the kefel and arba v'chamisha payments would be ke'ein shegonav, like at the time of the theft when it was scrawny, not kishas hamoda b'din when it's plump. So we say, yeah, but that is a different. That's not what Rav's talking about. That's a different case. Amr mishum da'amale, because Shimon's going to say, ono patimno v'at shokalt. How could it be that I invested in plumping up the cow? Why should you benefit from my plumping up? From my plumping? That's a good word, plumping. Why should you benefit from my plumping? I plumped it. So you don't have any access to that plumped up value. I'm only paying you, minus my efforts, i.e., a scrawny cow. Okay, we're gonna have to figure out then exactly what Rav is talking about when he says Kshas Amar B'Din Seder Tashma. In here, Shmeina ve'krisha. If you have a plump cow, ve'krisha and it became scrawny, Mishalim Tashlume Kefel ve'Tashlume Arba v'Chamisha Ke'ein Shegonab. So again, we're saying that he pays Kefel and Arba v'Chamisha like at the time of the theft, not like at the time of the court case. So Asumnami Dar Noichit Mishum Darminon Lei, because I guess the owner of the cow is going to say to the thief, Mali kotla kula mali kotla palga. Right? What's the difference if you would have just slaughtered the animal? Right? Meaning, if you would have stolen my animal and slaughtered it, so you would have to pay me at the time that you slaughtered it, i.e., a plump cow. So what's the difference if you slaughter it, in which you'd have to pay me a plump cow, or if you basically scrawnymize it, make it all scrawny, which is basically like half death. So what's the difference if you kill it completely, in which case you'd have to pay me for at the time of the killing, which would be a plump cow, or if you half killed it by scrawnyizing it, making it scrawny. So then that should also be like the same thing. It should be like you killed it also by scrawnyizing it and making it scrawny, and therefore you should have to pay like at the time that you started making it all scrawny, i.e., when it was initially plump. All right. Kikama Rav. Okay, so what's Rav talking about, right? If he's not talking about when it was scrawny and he made it plump, and if it's not talking about when it was plump and he made it scrawny, so then what? So what's he talking about? So Kikama Rav, when Rav is talking about beyukra vizola hu dekamer. Rav is talking about not when it was scrawny it became plump, or when it was plump it became scrawny, and there was actually a difference made to the actual cow. Rav is talking about when nothing changed in the cow, simply the price of a cow fluctuated. And so the question is, do you have to pay the value of that same cow like at the time of the theft, or like at the time of the court case, if the value of the price of a cow has fluctuated? Okay. So echidami. So what are we talking about in terms of fluctuation? So if we're talking about a scenario where the cow at the time that it was stolen cost 1 zuz, and then at the time that it comes to court, the value of a cow has quadrupled, and that same cow that was worth 1 zuz at the time of the theft is now worth 4 zuz. Keren ke'ein shegonav, and we're saying that nonetheless the principal amount is going to be the keren is going to be based on the time that it was stolen, i.e., 1 zuz. But lema pliga de Rav adarabba. But then that would mean that Rav is at odds with Rabba, which Rav is older than Rabba by 2 generations. But okay, I'm going to drink a little more coffee. It's nice just to have coffee on hand. It's just whenever the brain needs a little jolt, just sip of coffee. Dama Rabba, the Rabba says, Haiman de Gozul Chavisa de Chamer Mechaber. So Shimon steals a barrel of wine from Reuven. Meikore Shavya Zuza. Initially, at the time of the theft, it was worth a zuz. Uvasov Shavya Dalet Zuze. And then in the end, it's worth 4 zuz. Okay. Tavra. And then Oshasya. And then if Shimon breaks the barrel or drinks the barrel, Mashalim Dalid, he pays 4 zuz. So he steals this barrel and he breaks it. So the theft is considered at the time of the breaking, right? Because if it was, so long as he didn't break it, he would have to just give back the barrel to Reuven, right? So he's only really considered stealing it and taking ownership of it, so that he would have to pay for it at the time that he breaks it. And we're saying that he has to pay 4 zuz, i.e., the keren is based on the current value, not the initial value. If it broke on its own, he didn't break it, but it broke on its own, so then he pays like at the time of the theft. So we see that Rabbah is saying that when he steals something, the principal amount, so then that is the current, based on the current value, not based on the value at the time of the theft. So Amri Kikama Rav Kigon. So Rav says, when Rav says that you pay the Karen based on the time of theft, it's when it's fakir. Kigon to Meikar Shav Yadal V'Sof Shav Yazuzah, when it was initially 4 zuz, and then in the end it's worth 1 zuz. So in that case, we're saying that the Karen would be like at the time of the theft. Karen Kein Shagonav, so the Karen is like at the time of the theft. Tashlum Kefel v'Tashlum BavaKama Kishas Hamar Badin. That and Tashlum Kefel and Tashlum BavaKama would be based at the time of the court case. I'm going to drink a little bit more coffee before we go weiter. Gewaltig. Let's go weiter. Tani Rab Chanina l'sayu'e l'Rav. Ho ho. So comes Rab Chanina and he teaches a brisa which supports Rav. Which supports Rav. That the Karen is like at the time of the theft, and the Kefel and Dalet Vehei would be at the time of the din. So Balabai Shatoa and Tainis Ganif Bipikodin Vinishba Vihoda Bam 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 Pararam Buvo Edim Bam Bam Param in Bachelor Bo Edim Hoda Mishalim came Vachomish Vashom Vimshabo Edim Hoda Mishalim Tashtum Kevat Vashom Vichomsho Ola Bechvilo Divrib Yaakov ha. I have to assume that nobody understood that, and I'm going to have to do that again, because even I barely understood it because I read it so fast. So there's a situation of Toyin Tainas Ganef. Who could tell me what Toyin Tainas Ganef is? That Shimon left Epis at Ruvain's house to watch for him. Okay, Ruvain's going to watch it for Shimon. Shimon now comes to Ruvain, says, Ruvain, okay, I've come to collect my thing that you're watching for me. And Ruvain has already made other plans. He decided he's not giving it back to Shimon, he's keeping it for himself, and he's just going to lie and say that it was stolen. And, if he's a shomer chinam, so then he's potter from Gneva Vaveda, and so, okay, Shimon will have no choice but to go home. So that's exactly what I read. So Toyin Tainas Ganef. So Ruvain claims that it was stolen. Okay? And he swears to that effect. He swears that it was stolen. He swears falsely that it was stolen. So again, Balabayis, so Ruvain, Shetoin Tainas Ganef, who claims that the item in his custodianship, that I think is actually like prior word. Like, okay, I know that I make up all these silly words. Custodianship, come on, that sounds like official. Whatever. Balabai Shatan Tainas Ganef Bipikodin. So Ruvain, he claims that the item that he was custodianing, you see, custodianing is probably not a word, but maybe it is actually. So Ruvain claims that the thing that he was custodianing was stolen, which was a lie. He just kept it for himself. V'nishba, and he swore falsely about it. V'hoda, but then he admitted. And I think that we learned the other day. Pretty sure that we learned the other day. Yeah, it was 2 days ago, I think. That in this scenario, if you swear that it was stolen, but you actually kept it yourself, and then you admit that you swore falsely about it, so in that case, you have to pay the principal amount, plus a fifth, plus a chomesh, which of course, ultimately is what we would consider to be a quarter, plus a korban asham. Okay? So v'nishba v'hoda uvo eidim, but the interesting thing is that then witnesses came. So witnesses came and testified that he himself kept it. So now if they had come, this is what we're about to see right now, but like if he hadn't admitted it and they came and testified, then he would have to pay kefel. So we're saying im ad shelo bo eidim hoda. So if he had admitted that he swore falsely prior to the witnesses coming, well then Mishalim Karen v'chomesh v'asham. Then he pays the principal amount, the chomesh and the asham. V'imishabo edim hoda. But if initially the witnesses had come and testified that he himself stole it, so he would have to pay kefel, but then he admits it and he says, yes, it's true, I stole it. Mishalem tashlume kefel, so he has to pay kefel because the witnesses came and testified that he stole it, so he has to pay kefel. The asham, and he also brings a korban asham because he then admitted it. The chomsho olelo bikfilo, and the chomesh that he pays for having admitted it counts as his kefel, or really I think probably the other way around, right? The kefel that he paid also counts as his chomesh. To Rabbi Yaakov, that's Rabbi Yaakov's opinion. Now, the assumption is that the kefel that he's paying can only count as a chomesh if they're the same value. Now, you might be wondering, how in the world can something that's twice as much as something else be equal to something that is a quarter of that same value? A quarter, right? Something that's twice the amount is obviously, 8 times that amount. Or technically, if we're just talking about the additional payment, so kefel is sort of equal to the initial principal amount, whereas the chomesh is 1/4 of the initial amount. So how in the right? So we're saying that the kefel could also work as the chomesh, but that could only work if they're both, the same value. Like if the kefel is equal to the chomesh, otherwise it's not a chomesh. So we're going to have to figure out how could it be that kefel, twice the amount, is the same thing as chomesh, which is essentially a quarter of the amount. Okay. Let's go weiter. The Chacham say, Birosho v'chamishaso, and the pasuk says, what does it say? Vizvadu es chataso masher aso ve'eshev es hashamo birosho v'chamishaso Yosef olav v'nosan asher asham lo. That so birosho is referring to Keren, v'chamishaso is a chomesh. So mamon amishtalim birosh, when you're paying Keren, so then mosif chomesh, so then you also pay a chomesh. But mamun she'ein mishtalim birosh, once already we're talking about kefel, ein mosif chomesh, then there's not going to be any chomesh anymore. Meaning the chacham are saying that once these witnesses come and testify that that Ruvain himself stole it, so then he pays kefel. Now that he's paying kefel, there's no longer going to be any chomesh at all. Reb Shimon ben Yochai takes it one step further. Ein chomesh ve'asham mishtalim b'makom sheish kefel. That if he's paying kefel because his witnesses came and testified that he stole it, so then not only would there no longer be a chomesh, there also would no longer be a korban asham either. According to Chacham, there still would be a korban asham, just no chomesh. But according to Reb Shimon ben Yochai, there also would not be a korban asham. Katani mias. But the important thing for us is that it taught chomsho olelo b'chvila de Reb Yaakov. That Reb Yaakov says that that when he pays the kefel, because the witnesses came and testified that he himself stole it, so he has to pay kefel. So that kefel could work as the chomesh that he's chayev for having admitted that he stole, right? After having sworn that it was stolen, he then admits that he himself stole it, so he has to pay the chomesh. Rabbi Yaakov says that the kefel could work as the chomesh as well. Hey chidami, how could you have kefel and chomesh be the same amount? Well, if we're talking about where the item was initially worth 4 zuz, and it's currently worth 4 zuz, well, then that's impossible because the kefel is going to be an additional 4 zuz, whereas the chomesh is just going to be an additional 1 zuz. So chomsho olelo b'kvilo, how could it be that the chomesh would be covered by the kefel? Kvila arba, the kefel is 4, v'chomsha zuzah, and the chomesh is 1 zuz. Those are different amounts, right? The kefel is not the chomesh. Lavd meikar shavya arba, ulvasov shavya zuzah. Rather, it's talking about where initially it was worth 4 zuz, and in the end it's worth 1 zuz. So it's, there you go. So it started out as 4 zuz, and in the end it's worth 1 zuz. Now if you're Rav had said that kefel is kishas hamara badin. So kefel is at the later value of 1 zuz, so the kefel would be an additional 1 zuz, whereas the chomesh would be based on the keren, and Rav says that keren is kishas hageneva, and that was 4 zuz. So the chomesh is basically 25% of 4 zuz, which is 1 zuz, and the kefil is kshas hamada badin when it's only worth 1 zuz, so double that would be another zuz. So in that case, you can have the chomesh and the kefil be the same amount. In our example, they would both be 1 zuz, and that supports Rav, who says that Keren is Kshas HaGneva, and Kefel and Dalet Vehei are Kshas HaMarabadin, the Kfila Zuzah, that the Kefel would be 1 zuz, V'chomshe Zuzah, as well as the Chomesh being 1 zuz as well. Alma, from here we see Keren, Kein Shegonav, that the principal amount is based at the time of the Geneva, and therefore the fifth is going to be based on the principal amount, and it's going to be 1 zuz. Tashlum Kef of Tashlum BavaKama Kishas HaMarabadin is going to be based on the time of of the court case, which was when it was already worth just 1 zuz. Okay. Omar Rava says Rava the Olam Dmei Ikara Shavi Arba V'Ashtanami Shavi Arba, says Rava that no, not necessarily. We could still say that it's talking about where it was initially worth 4 zuz, and in the end it's also worth 4 zuz. Okay, but then the question is, how could kefel then be worth the same as chomesh? And then you're going to ask, yes, but then the kefel is 4 and the chomesh is only 1. Here what are we talking about? Kigon shenishba v'chazor v'nishba arba paimim v'hoda. Well, it's talking about this guy Ruvain. He swore that it was stolen, and then he admitted that he himself took it. So he was chayav chomesh, which is a zuz. And then you know what he did? He did it again. He said, no, actually it was stolen. And then he swore that it was stolen, then he admitted it again. He did it 4 times. So each time he was chayav a zuz. So in the end, the multiple chomeshes are going to be equal to the kefel. But Torah Omer, that the Torah says, v'chamishisov, plural chomeshes. Hatar ribsa chamishos harbe b'keren achas, that there could even be multiple chomeshes even when it's the same principle. So meaning, if he keeps on swearing and then admitting it, he will keep on being chayev 1 zuz. Omer Mar, we said earlier, that the Chacham had said that the chomesh is going to be based on the principal amount. That only when you're paying Keren do you then add a fifth. But when you're paying kefel, so then forget about the chomesh. But he would still bring the asham, right? So meaning it was talking about a scenario where witnesses came and testified that he, Ruvain himself, stole it. So he was chayiv kefel. Then he admitted that he himself stole it. So we're saying that, look, he's not going to pay the chomesh, but he will still bring the korban asham. Ma'ishna chomesh delo mishalim. Now how come he's not paying the chomesh? Tichsid birosho v'chamishiso. Well, it says birosho, the principal amount, and the chomesh. And therefore, if you're not paying the principal amount, you're paying double because the witnesses came, so then forget about the chomesh. Well then, asham nami. So then for the same rationale, shouldn't I also exclude the asham? Lo mishalim, you shouldn't pay the asham, the haksiv, or offer a korban asham, because the pasuk says, birosha v'chamishiso, ve'es ashamu, as well as the asham. So if he's not bringing the chomesh, he should also not bring the asham. Amilach Rabbanon, the rabbis will respond, es paske kro. Right? When it says, birosha v'chamishiso, ve'es ashamo, so the word es breaks it up to say that no, only the chomesh would not be paid, but the asham would still be offered. For Reb Shimon ben Yechai, ve'es, or ve'es, right, arve kro, that the vav by ve'es, it comes to include it and to say that, just like you would not pay the chomesh, you would oichet not pay the asham, or in other words, just like the chomesh is dependent on the birosho, on the principle, so is the asham. And if you're not going to pay the principle, you don't pay neither the chomesh nor the asham. The Rabbanan will reply, lo lichtor v'achmana lo vav v'lo es. Whereas the rabbis say, look, I mean, if they should be included together, then don't write S and don't write Vav, right? Just say, I don't know, Birosha v'chamishiso ve'ashamo, I guess. Fine. Reb Shimon ben Yochai Omelach, Reb Shimon ben Yochai would respond, Es lo saged lo kasav. No, it needs to write es. La'afsuke be mammon gavoa l'mammon hedjit, to make a separation between mammon gavoa, right, the asham, which is goes to God, and mammon hedjit, the chomesh, which is just money that goes to the guy who was stolen from. So therefore you need es to divide those two. Hilkoch also vav. So now you have the vav though, Arbe the Kra, to say, but kind of lump the chomesh and the asham together to say that you're only going to pay chomesh and asham when you're paying the principal amount, but once already it's kefil, you're going to pay neither of those things. Friends, that was the samachay of Masechta BavaKama. The main thing of today's daf was Rav's opinion that when it's going to come up also in the future, that when you have Karen and you have Chomesh, when you have Karen and you have Kefel Dalad Behei, so the Karen is Kshas HaGneva and the Kefel and the Dalad Behei is going to be Kshas HaMorah Badin. We kind of discussed that halacha. We're going to stop. And we're going to stop here, even though we have a whole chunk to do on Samachay, just because it starts like a new sugya about Shinui and Yeush and kind of that stuff. And I don't know, maybe we'll just kind of like try to tackle it all together, I think. All right. All right. Peace.